Jake Morrison stood at the window of the ship and watched the alien station grow larger. His hands were sweating. This was the biggest moment of his life. He was about to meet aliens that no human had ever truly connected with before. "Captain, we're 5 minutes out," said Lisa Grant from behind him. She was the team's language expert. For the past 3 months, she had been teaching Jake how to speak the alien language. It was the hardest thing he had ever learned. Jake turned to face his small team. Lisa stood with her data pad, her eyes tired from lack of sleep. Next to her was Ben Hayes, their cultural expert. Ben looked nervous, which was unusual for him. "Remember what we practiced," Lisa said. "The Velshera take names very seriously. More seriously than anything else in their culture." Jake nodded. He had spent every free moment learning the princess's name. It was long. Very long. 30 seconds of sounds that seemed impossible for a human mouth to make. But he had practiced until his jaw ached and his tongue felt twisted. The ship docked with a soft thud. Jake took a deep breath and led his team to the airlock. When the door opened, he saw a corridor made of what looked like crystal and glass. Light moved through it in strange patterns. Everything about this place felt alive. A group of aliens waited for them at the end of the corridor. The Velshara were tall, taller than any human. Their skin seemed to glow with soft light that changed colors slowly. They had 4 arms each, and their faces were smooth with large eyes that looked almost sad. One Velshara stepped forward. She wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid metal. Her glow was brighter than the others, shifting between blue and purple. This had to be the princess. She began to speak. The sound was beautiful and strange at the same time. It was like music mixed with the rumble of thunder. The translation device in Jake's ear turned her words into English. "Welcome, visitors from Earth. I am the daughter of the High Council, keeper of the Western Territories, guardian of the Crystal Moon, and speaker for my people in matters of first contact." Then she said her name. It went on and on. Jake listened carefully, even though he had memorized it weeks ago. The translation device couldn't help with names. It just made a beeping sound and displayed text that read, "Name too complex for translation." Other humans had met the Velshara before. They had all called her Princess or Your Highness because her real name was too hard to say. The Velshara had accepted this, but according to Lisa's research, they had never trusted humans because of it. Jake stepped forward. His heart was pounding so hard he thought everyone could hear it. He opened his mouth and began to speak. The sounds felt strange coming from his throat. He had to use parts of his mouth he didn't normally use. His tongue moved in ways that felt unnatural. "Shel Arath Inavel Mazora," he said clearly. Every Velshara in the corridor froze. Their glowing skin suddenly flared bright white. The princess stared at Jake with her large eyes open wide. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. "You spoke my name," the princess whispered. The translation device made her sound shocked. "Yes," Jake said simply. "It's your name. It's who you are." I wanted to say it properly. The princess took a step closer to him. Her 4 hands moved to her chest in what looked like a gesture of surprise. "Say it again. Please." Jake said her name again, even more carefully this time. He made sure each sound was correct. Each part of the name had meaning. Lisa had taught him. It told the story of who the princess was, who her family had been, and what she had done in her life. The princess made a sound that the translator couldn't convert. It was something between a gasp and a song. Her skin shifted through colors rapidly: blue, purple, gold, green, and then back to blue. 3,000 years, she said quietly. For 3,000 years, my people have met with other species. Not one of them has ever spoken my true name. They call me Princess. They call me Your Highness. They call me by shortened sounds that mean nothing. But you spoke every syllable. You said my whole name. No. No. One of the other Velshara stepped forward. He was older, his skin less bright. This is impossible. The human mouth cannot form our sounds. We have tested this. Lisa spoke up from behind Jake. The human mouth can learn almost any sound given enough practice and dedication. Captain Morrison has been training for 3 months. 3 months, the princess repeated. You spent 3 months learning to say my name? Yes, Jake said, because your name is important. You're important. If we're going to be friends, if our people are going to work together, then I needed to be able to call you by your real name. The princess was quiet for a moment. Then she gestured with all 4 of her arms. Come. All of you. This changes everything. You must come with us to the council chamber. This has never happened before. As they walked through the crystal corridors, Jake could hear the Velshara whispering to each other in their musical language. The princess walked beside him, occasionally looking at him as if he might disappear. Do you understand what you have done? She asked him quietly. I think so, Jake answered. Lisa explained that names are sacred to your people, that they contain history and meaning. It is more than that, the princess said. To speak someone's true name is to acknowledge that they exist, that they are real, that they matter. Other species have treated us with respect. Yes, but they have also treated us as if our identity was not worth the effort to learn, as if we were too different, too difficult, too other. She stopped walking and turned to face Jake fully. You are the first person, not of my kind, who has ever truly seen me. Jake felt the weight of her words. This was bigger than he had realized. This wasn't just about being polite or following protocol. This was about making someone feel like they mattered, like they were worth knowing. I would like to learn the names of your people too, the princess said. All of them. Every Velshara who works with humans should be known by their true names. Will you help teach us how to remember? Jake smiled. That's why we're here. Not just for a treaty or trade agreement. We're here to actually know each other. The princess's skin glowed bright gold. Lisa whispered that gold meant joy. The princess was happy. Really, truly happy. And Jake realized that maybe humans had something special to offer the galaxy after all. Not just technology or weapons or resources, but the simple willingness to put in the effort to truly know someone else, to remember their name, to see them as they really were. They entered a massive chamber where hundreds of Velshara waited. The princess raised her arms and spoke to her people in their language. Then, she turned to Jake. I have told them what you did. Now, I must ask you to do something even harder. Will you speak the name of my grandfather? His name is carved in stone behind me. He died 500 years ago. No outsider has ever honored his memory by speaking his name. Jake looked at the carved stone. The name was long, much longer than the princess's name. This would be the real test. Jake took a breath and began to speak. The grandfather's name took Jake almost 2 minutes to speak. His mouth grew tired halfway through, but he didn't stop. Every Velshara in the chamber watched in complete silence. When he finished the last syllable, Jake felt dizzy. His jaw ached, and his throat was dry. The princess stood completely still. Then, something wet and glowing appeared on her face, running down like tears. But these tears glowed silver in the dim light of the chamber. He remembered. She whispered. You remembered my grandfather. You spoke his name, his full name, every part of who he was. For Ezende. For Ansi. For. She turned to the gathered Velshara and spoke in their language. Her voice was shaking. Many of the other aliens began to glow brighter. Some of them made sounds that didn't need translation. They were crying too. An old Velshara stepped forward from the crowd. His skin was dim. almost gray. I am the keeper of records. For 5 centuries, I have maintained my father's name in stone and memory. No one beyond our people has ever honored him. This human has given our family a gift beyond measure. Jake didn't know what to say. He had just wanted to be respectful. He hadn't realized how deep this would go. The princess gestured for Jake and his team to follow her. They left the chamber and walked through more crystal corridors until they reached a smaller, more private room. The walls here showed images of space and stars. It was beautiful. "Sit, please," the princess said. "We must talk. Really talk. Not as diplomat to diplomat, but as people who are beginning to understand each other." Jake sat on a bench that formed itself from the floor. Lisa and Ben sat beside him. The princess sat across from them, folding all 4 of her arms in her lap. "I want to tell you something that few outsiders know," she began. "Our names grow throughout our lives. When we are born, we have only 3 syllables. As we grow, as we learn, as we achieve things and connect with others, our names become longer. My name is 42 syllables long. It tells the story of who I am. And then we won. I man of one." "That's beautiful," Lisa said softly. "Every name is a history book." "Yes," the princess agreed. "But it is also a burden. The longer your name becomes, the more impossible it is for outsiders to speak it. I am royalty. My name is one of the longest among my people. This means I am also one of the loneliest." Jake leaned forward. "Lonely? But you're surrounded by people." "By my own people, yes," the princess said. "But for 3,000 years, we have been part of the galactic community. We have met hundreds of species. We have signed treaties and traded goods. But never, not once, has anyone from another world been able to truly know us. They cannot speak our names, so they cannot really see us." She paused and looked directly at Jake. "Do you know what it feels like to meet someone who will never know your real name? Who will only ever call you by a title or a shortened sound? It feels like being invisible. Like being a shadow instead of a person." Ben spoke up. "But surely some species tried to learn? Someone must have made an effort?" "Oh, they tried," the princess said, and her skin flickered dark blue. Lisa's notes said that blue meant sadness. "For the first few centuries, many tried, but our names are long and complex. The sounds are difficult. Most gave up after a few attempts. Eventually, everyone just accepted that Velshara names were impossible. We accepted it too. We stopped expecting anyone to try. Until today," Jake said. "Until today," the princess echoed. "You spent 3 months learning my name. 3 months of practice. Why? Why would you put in that much effort?" Jake thought about how to explain. "On Earth, we have a saying. The sweetest sound to any person is their own name. When someone remembers your name and says it correctly, it shows they think you're worth knowing. It shows respect. When I learned about your people and how important names are to you, I knew I had to learn yours. How could I come here and ask for friendship if I wasn't willing to learn something so basic about who you are?" The princess was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "Would you teach us? Would you teach my people how humans remember things? How you learned my name?" Lisa smiled. "Of course. That's actually part of why we brought such a large database. Humans have developed memory techniques over thousands of years. We can teach you all of them. But more than that," Jake added. "We'd like to learn your names. All of them. Everyone we work with. Everyone we meet. If we're going to build a real friendship between our peoples, it starts with knowing each other's names." The princess's skin turned bright gold again. "I must bring this proposal to the High Council. If they agree, this could change everything for my people." She paused. "Would you be willing to come to our home world? To teach there?" We'd be honored, Jake said. Over the next few days, arrangements were made. The human ship followed the Velshara fleet to their home world. During the journey, Jake spent hours with the princess. She taught him about Velshara culture while he explained human memory techniques. We use something called a memory palace, Jake explained one day. They sat in an observation room, watching stars streak past. You imagine a building in your mind. Then you place the things you want to remember in different rooms. When you need to recall something, you walk through the building in your imagination. The princess found this fascinating. So you create a false place to store real information? Exactly. Our brains are very good at remembering locations and visual images, so we turn abstract information into something visual and spatial. Clever, the princess said. We have something similar, but it involves patterns of light and sound. Perhaps our methods could work together. As they talked more, Jake learned about the princess's life. She was 300 years old, which was young for her people. She had been trained from childhood to be a diplomat, but despite meeting countless aliens, she had never had a real friend from another species. Do you have friends among your own people? Jake asked. A few, she admitted. But being royalty makes even that difficult. Everyone sees my title before they see me. They speak my name with reverence, but not with warmth. I am respected, but not known. Jake understood that feeling more than he wanted to admit. Being a captain was lonely too. People saluted him, but didn't always see him as a person. Maybe we're more alike than different, he said. The princess made a sound that might have been a laugh. Perhaps that's the real discovery here. Not that humans can speak our names, but that despite all our differences, we share the same need to be known, to be seen, to matter to someone. When they arrived at the Velshara homeworld, Jake was amazed. The planets seemed to glow from space, covered in structures that looked like they had been grown rather than built. Everything was made of crystal and living metal that shifted colors. The princess led them to a massive building near the planet's capital. This is the Hall of Ancestors, she explained. Every Velshara who has achieved greatness has their name inscribed here. There are thousands of names, millions of syllables. It is our most sacred place. Inside, the walls were covered in flowing script that seemed to move and change. Each name glowed softly with its own light. My grandfather's name is there, the princess said, pointing to a section of wall. You spoke it in the council chamber, but there are many others. Heroes, scientists, artists, leaders. All of them, waiting to be remembered by someone new. Jake walked along the walls, looking at the names. Each one was a story. Each one was a person who had lived and done things worth remembering. And for thousands of years, no outsider had been able to honor these memories by speaking the names aloud. I have a challenge for you, the princess said. Her skin flickered between colors, showing she was nervous. If you can speak 10 names from this hall, I will invite you to the most important place on our planet. Somewhere no alien has ever been allowed. Jake looked at Lisa and Ben. They both nodded. Show us the names, Jake said. The princess chose 10 names from different sections of the hall. They ranged from 30 syllables to 90. Jake listened to each one carefully, using every memory technique he knew. He pictured each name as a journey through his memory palace. He connected sounds to colors and feelings. He broke the long names into smaller chunks and gave each chunk meaning. It took hours. His throat grew raw. His mind felt exhausted. But he didn't give up. Because this wasn't just about passing a test. It was about honoring people who deserved to be remembered. People who had lived full lives and done great things. When he spoke the final name, the 10th name, the princess's skin blazed with golden light so bright it filled the entire hall. You did it, she said, her voice full of wonder. You honored them all. The princess kept her promise. She took Jake and his team to the inner sanctum of the Velshara capital, a place called the Garden of Souls. It was a massive dome where millions of tiny lights floated in the air like fireflies. Each light represented a living Velshara, somewhere in the galaxy. This is where we feel connected to each other, the princess explained. No matter how far apart we are, our essence is here. And now, I want to add something new. A light for each human who learns to speak our names truly. It was a beautiful gesture. Jake felt honored. But he also felt the weight of responsibility. If humans were going to be part of this sacred place, they needed to be worthy of it. Over the next week, Jake and Lisa began teaching memory techniques to groups of Velshara. The students were eager and fascinated. They had never considered that memory could be trained like a muscle. Meanwhile, Ben worked on cultural exchange programs, finding ways for humans and Velshara to share more than just formal meetings. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. Then the problem started. It began small. Jake's translation device stopped working properly during an important meeting with the High Council. Words got mixed up. Meanings became confused. It was embarrassing, and Jake had to apologize multiple times. "That's strange," Lisa said later, examining the device. "These things are built to last for years. They don't just malfunction like this." The next day, Lisa's entire linguistic database crashed. Years of research and carefully compiled pronunciation guides vanished. She spent hours trying to recover the data, her face growing more worried with each failed attempt. "Something's wrong," she said to Jake. "This wasn't an accident. Someone deleted specific files, the ones about Velshara names." Then Ben got sick. He collapsed during a tour of the city, his skin turning pale and his breathing becoming difficult. The Velshara doctors said he had been poisoned by something in the food he ate at a ceremonial dinner. "It was supposed to be safe," the princess said, visiting Ben in the medical facility. Her skin was dark blue with worry. All the food was tested for human compatibility. This should not have happened. Jake stood beside Ben's bed, watching his friend struggle to breathe. Something was very wrong here. These weren't accidents. Someone was trying to sabotage their mission. "Who doesn't want us here?" Jake asked the princess directly. She hesitated, her forearms folding together. "There are some among my people who believe we should remain isolated. They think opening ourselves to outsiders is dangerous, that it will dilute our culture and make us weak." "Who leads this group?" "The High Chancellor, Corval Shanthar," she said quietly. "He is old and powerful. He has always argued that our inability to connect with other species is a feature, not a bug. It keeps us pure and separate." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "So he's been sabotaging us?" "I don't know for certain, but I have suspicions." The princess looked at Ben, still struggling to breathe. "I will investigate. If someone is doing this, they will face justice." The princess worked quickly and quietly. She had loyal guards who helped her search records and question people. What she found was worse than Jake had imagined. 3 days later, she called Jake to a private meeting room. Her skin was flickering between dark blue and angry red. "I have evidence. You were right. This was deliberate." She showed him data on a screen. "High Chancellor Corval Shanthar and several others have been working to stop our connection with humanity. They corrupted your translation device. They deleted Lisa's files. They added a substance to Ben's food that would make him sick, but not kill him. Just enough to make you want to leave." "Why?" Jake asked, though he thought he knew the answer. "Because they're afraid," the princess said. "For thousands of years, they have used our complex names as a barrier. Other species couldn't speak our names, so we remained separate, special, different. If humans can learn our names, if you teach us how to remember yours, then that barrier falls. We become just another species in the galaxy. Connected, vulnerable." "That's not vulnerability," Jake said. "That's friendship." "I know. But they don't see it that way." The princess sat down, looking tired. There's more. I found an old prophecy in the archives. It speaks of the ones who speak truth names bringing a new age to our people. An age of connection and change. Corvel Shanthar and his followers have been suppressing this prophecy for centuries. Jake thought about what this meant. So for hundreds of years, they've been making it harder for other species to learn your names? On purpose? Why? Yes, they've been adding distortions to our pronunciation guides, making our names seem more impossible than they really are. They've been maintaining our isolation intentionally. Jake felt sick. All those species who had tried and failed to connect with the Velshara. All those potential friendships that never happened. All because of fear and the desire to remain separate. What do we do now? He asked. The princess stood up, her skin turning bright gold. Now we fight back. Not with violence, but with truth. I'm calling a full council meeting. I'm going to present this evidence and demand justice. Won't that be dangerous? Corvel Shanthar is powerful. Yes. But you've given me something I haven't had before. She looked at Jake with her large, sad eyes. You've given me hope. Hope that change is possible. That connection is worth fighting for. I won't let fear win anymore. The council meeting was held in the largest chamber Jake had seen yet. Hundreds of Velshara gathered to watch. Corvel Shanthar sat in a place of honor, his skin a calm, confident blue. He looked at Jake with what seemed like contempt. The princess presented her evidence carefully. She showed the deleted files, the corrupted translation device, the medical reports about Ben's poisoning, and finally, the old prophecy that had been hidden. The ones who speak truth names shall come, she read from an ancient text. They shall break the silence that protects us and brings us loneliness. They shall teach us that being known is worth more than being separate. And through them, the lonely ones shall become legion in friendship. The chamber erupted in whispers and sounds. The Velshara spoke to each other rapidly in their musical language. Corvel Shanthar stood up. His voice boomed through the chamber. This prophecy is dangerous. It speaks of breaking down the walls that have kept us safe and pure for thousands of years. Yes, I took action to protect our people. Is that wrong? To want to preserve our culture? You didn't preserve it, Jake said, standing up as well. You imprisoned it. You made your people lonely. You denied them the chance to be truly known by anyone different from themselves. And what do you know of loneliness, human? Corvel Shanthar shot back. You come here for a few weeks and think you understand us? I know what the princess told me, Jake said. I know she spent 300 years meeting other species and having none of them ever speak her true name. I know your people maintain this beautiful hall of ancestors, but for thousands of years, no outsider has been able to honor those memories. That's not preservation. That's isolation. And isolation hurts. The princess stepped forward. I invoke the ancient rite of the Festival of Names. It hasn't been called in 1,000 years. But the law is clear. When the way forward is unclear, when the people are divided, we gather and share our names with those we wish to honor. Let the humans prove themselves. Let them show they can truly know us. A murmur went through the crowd. The Festival of Names was legendary. It required enormous effort and was considered the highest form of cultural exchange. Corvel Shanthar's skin flickered with anger. You would risk our sacred tradition on these outsiders? I would give them a chance to show their worth. The princess said firmly. If they fail, then perhaps you are right. But if they succeed, you must accept that change has come. That connection is possible. That we don't have to be alone anymore. The council voted. It was close, but the princess won. The Festival of Names would be held in 1 week. Jake would have to gather more humans to help. They would need to learn hundreds of Velshara names and share their own stories in return. As they left the chamber, the princess pulled Jake aside. Thank you for standing with me. Of course, Jake said. This is important. Not just for our mission, but for your people. I know Corvel Shanthar will try something else, she warned. He won't accept defeat easily. Be careful, Jake nodded. He knew she was right. But he also knew they had come too far to give up now. Jake sent an urgent message back to Earth. He explained everything that had happened and what was needed. Within 3 days, 5 more human ships arrived at the Velshara homeworld. They brought linguists, memory experts, historians, and diplomats. Nearly 50 humans in total, all volunteering to help. Among them was an old man named Carl Wright. He was 70 years old with white hair and kind eyes. He walked with a cane, but his mind was sharp as ever. Captain Morrison, Carl said, shaking Jake's hand. I once memorized 10,000 digits of pi for fun. I think I can handle some alien names. Lisa threw herself into organizing the preparation. She divided the volunteers into teams and assigned each team a group of Velshara to learn about. They had 6 days to prepare for the festival. The key is connection, Lisa explained to everyone. Don't just memorize the sounds. Learn the stories behind the names. Understand what each syllable means. Make it personal. The Velshara were equally busy. Thousands of them signed up to participate in the festival. They would share their names and stories with the humans. It was the largest cultural exchange in their history. Jake spent most of his time with the princess, learning not just her name but her life story. She told him about her childhood, her training, her hopes and fears. In return, he told her about growing up on Earth, about his family, about why he had chosen to explore space. Your name is so short, she observed one day. Just 2 syllables. Jake Morrison. Yet it carries meaning too, doesn't it? My grandmother gave me my first name, Jake explained. Jake means holder or supplanter in Old Earth language. Morrison means son of Morris. My grandfather's name was Morris. He was a librarian who taught me that every name tells a story. The princess's skin glowed soft gold. Your names are simple, but beautiful. They connect you to your ancestors. That's something we share. But not everyone was happy about the festival. Ben, now recovered from his poisoning, reported seeing Velshara, who wore the colors of Corvel Shanthar's faction, watching the humans constantly. They looked angry and afraid. They're planning something, Ben warned. I can feel it, Jake agreed. He asked the princess to increase security, but she had limited power over Corvel Shanthar's people. I've done what I can, she said, but he still has many followers. Be ready for anything. The festival began at dawn on the 7th day. The grand amphitheater in the capital was filled with Velshara and humans. Thousands gathered to witness this historic moment. The walls of the amphitheater were made of crystal that caught the morning light and scattered it into rainbows. The princess stood at the center of the amphitheater. Her skin blazed with golden light. Today, we begin a new age, she announced in both her language and in English. Today, we test whether true connection between our peoples is possible. Let the Festival of Names begin. The ceremony was simple but profound. Each human was paired with a Velshara. They would spend the day together, learning each other's names and stories. At sunset, everyone would gather again, and the humans would speak the Velshara names they had learned. Jake was paired with the princess, as was traditional for the leaders. They sat together in a quiet garden, while she told him the full story of her name. Each syllable represented a moment in her life, a choice she had made, a person she had loved. All around the city, humans and Velshara were doing the same thing. Lisa was paired with an elderly scientist. Carl Wright was paired with a young artist. Ben, still weak but determined, was paired with a historian. The day passed like a beautiful dream. Stories were shared. Laughter echoed through the streets. Tears were shed, both human and Velshara. For the first time in thousands of years, the Velshara were truly being known by outsiders. But as the sun began to set, and everyone gathered back at the amphitheater for the final ceremony, trouble struck. A loud sound filled the air. It was like static, mixed with thunder. The sound hurt Jake's ears and made his head spin. All around him, humans grabbed their heads in pain. The sound was disrupting their hearing and scrambling their thoughts. Corvel Shanthar, the princess shouted. She pointed to a platform above the amphitheater where the High Chancellor stood with several of his followers. They had some kind of device that was creating the disrupting sound. This festival is a mockery, Corvel Shanthar's voice boomed over the noise. You cannot truly learn our names. Your minds are too simple. Your memory's too weak. This proves it. Jake tried to focus. Tried to remember the princess's name. But the sound was scrambling his thoughts. He could see other humans struggling too. Some had fallen to their knees. Years of preparation seemed to be crumbling. But then Carl Wright stood up. The old man planted his cane firmly on the ground and smiled. His eyes were closed, and he seemed completely unaffected by the noise. Interesting trick, Carl called out. But I have synesthesia. I see sounds as colors. Your disruption is just making pretty patterns to me. It doesn't affect my memory at all. And Carl began to speak. He recited the name of his paired Velshara, a young artist. Every syllable was perfect. Every sound was clear. His voice carried across the amphitheater despite the disrupting noise. When he finished, the young artist began to cry silver tears. He remembered, she whispered. Even through the attack, he remembered. Other humans began to recover. Lisa stood up, shaking her head to clear it. We recorded everything, she shouted. We practiced until it became muscle memory. Your disruption can't erase what we've learned. One by one, the humans began to speak. They spoke the names they had learned. Some stumbled. Some had to try several times. But they didn't give up. They pushed through the pain and the confusion because this mattered. These names mattered. These people mattered. Jake forced himself to focus. He blocked out the disrupting sound and thought about the princess. He thought about her stories, her hopes, her loneliness. He thought about what her name meant and why it was important to say it right. He opened his mouth and began to speak. Shelarathi Navel Mazora. The disrupting sound suddenly stopped. Jake opened his eyes and saw that the princess had sent her guards to stop Corvel Shanthar. The device was destroyed. The High Chancellor was being held by guards, his skin flickering with angry red light. But the damage had been done, or so Corvel Shanthar thought. He looked at the humans with contempt. You see? Even your best efforts can be disrupted. You are too weak to truly connect with us. No, the princess said firmly. She walked to the center of the amphitheater. You're wrong. They succeeded, despite your attack. They proved that their desire to know us is stronger than your desire to keep us isolated. They proved that connection is worth fighting for. She turned to address all the gathered Velshara. For too long, we have been alone. We told ourselves it was because other species couldn't speak our names. But the truth is, we were afraid. Afraid of being known. Afraid of being vulnerable. Afraid of change. These humans have shown us that fear is not a reason to stay isolated. It's a reason to reach out. The crowd of Velshara began to glow brighter. Many of them were crying. The festival continued as the sun set. Every human spoke at least one name. Most spoke several. By the time darkness fell, hundreds of Velshara names had been honored by human voices, and then the Velshara returned the favor. They spoke human names. They told human stories. They showed that they had been listening and learning too. The princess stood with Jake as the stars came out. You did it, she said softly. You proved that connection is possible. That we don't have to be alone. We did it together, Jake corrected. This wasn't just about us learning your names. It was about both our peoples, deciding that knowing each other was worth the effort. Corvel Shanthar was led away by guards. His faction had crumbled when their attack failed. Even his closest supporters had been moved by the festival. They had seen their people cry tears of joy. They had felt the loneliness begin to lift. As Jake looked around at humans and Velshera talking and laughing together, he felt proud. Not of himself, but of what everyone had achieved together. They had taken the first real step toward genuine friendship between their peoples. "What happens now?" Jake asked the princess. She smiled, her skin glowing with golden light that matched the stars above. "Now, we build on this. Now, we make sure this connection grows stronger. Now we show the galaxy that different peoples can truly know each other." The weeks after the festival were busy and exciting. The Velshera High Council officially voted to open full diplomatic relations with humanity. An embassy was built in the capital, a beautiful structure that mixed human and Velshera design. It had both straight walls and flowing crystal, showing how two different styles could work together. Jake was named the first human ambassador to the Velshera. Lisa became the head of the new Linguistic Institute, where she would teach both species about each other's languages and memory techniques. Ben recovered fully from his poisoning and started a cultural exchange program that brought young humans and Velshera together to learn and grow. Other species across the galaxy heard about what had happened. They sent representatives to learn too. The Velshera, for the first time in their long history, began to teach other species how to speak their names. The barrier that had kept them isolated for thousands of years was finally coming down. Carl Wright became something of a celebrity. Young Velshera loved hearing stories from the old man who had defeated Corvel Shanthar's disruption through sheer mental discipline. He stayed on the Velshera homeworld as a teacher, sharing memory techniques that he had developed over his long life. But for Jake, the most important moment came one evening, 2 months after the festival. The princess sent him a private message asking him to meet her in the Garden of Souls. He arrived at sunset. The floating lights in the garden had grown in number. New lights had been added for every human who had learned to speak Velshera names. The garden glowed with thousands of tiny stars. The princess waited for him at the center of the garden. She wore simple robes, and her skin glowed with a soft, peaceful blue. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I have something important to ask you." Jake walked closer. Over the past months, he had spent a lot of time with the princess. They had become genuine friends. He had learned that beneath her royal duties, she was kind, curious, and deeply thoughtful. And she had learned that he was stubborn, optimistic, and willing to work hard for things that mattered. "In our culture," the princess began, "there is a tradition that is rarely used. When someone saves another person from loneliness, when they give the gift of being truly known, they earn the right to add a syllable to that person's name." Jake's eyes widened. "You mean, you saved me from loneliness," she said simply. "You were the first person outside my species to speak my name. You fought for me when others tried to keep us isolated. You gave me hope that I could have real friends beyond my own people. For this, I want to honor you by adding your essence to my name." Jake felt overwhelmed. This was an incredible honor. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," the princess smiled. "But first, you must choose. What syllable represents your essence? What sound captures who you are?" Jake thought carefully. He thought about his grandmother, the librarian who taught him that every name was a story. He thought about his journey to this world and everything he had learned. Finally, he spoke. "Thanks for watching, and until next time." "More," he said. "It comes from my family name, Morrison. In an old Earth language, it means keeper of memories. I think that's what I've become here. Someone who keeps memories, someone who remembers." The princess's skin blazed with golden light. "More, keeper of memories. Yes, that is perfect." She gestured for Jake to kneel. He did, and she placed all 4 of her hands on his shoulders. She began to speak in her language, a formal ceremony that was being recorded by dozens of Velshera witnesses who had gathered quietly around them. When she finished, she spoke in English so Jake would understand. From this day forward, my name is no longer just Shel Arathina Vel Mazora. It is Shel Arathina Vel Mazora More. You are now part of my name, part of my story, part of who I am. This bond can never be broken. Jake felt tears in his eyes. Thank you. This means more than I can say. And I have something for you as well, the princess said. She helped him stand. If you are part of my name, then I should be part of yours. In our tradition, when we add someone to our name, we give them a name in return. Would you accept a Velshara name? Yes, Jake said without hesitation. The princess thought for a moment, then spoke. Your name shall be Jakmor Shelvith. Jake, keeper of memories, friend of Shel, bridge between worlds. This is who you are to us. She taught him how to say it. The sounds felt strange but also right. This was who he had become, not just Captain Jake Morrison of Earth, but Jakmor Shelvith, a person who belonged to two worlds. There's something else, the princess said. Something I need to show you. She led him to a part of the Garden of Souls he had never seen before. Here, the floating lights were arranged in patterns that looked like constellations. These lights represent bonds between people, she explained. When two Velshara become close friends or family, their lights connect. See the lines between them? Jake looked closer and saw thin threads of light connecting various floating points. It was beautiful, like a web of relationships spanning the entire garden. And now, the princess said, look at this. A new light appeared. Jake recognized it as his own. And from it, a thread of golden light stretched to the princess's light. Connecting them, we are bonded now, she said softly. In a way that my people recognize and honor. You are not just my friend, Jake. You are my name friend. My soul companion. We are part of each other's story forever. Jake watched the lights dance together, connected by that golden thread. He thought about how far he had come. A few months ago, he had been a captain on a diplomatic mission, trying to follow protocol and make a good impression. Now, he was something more. He was a bridge between two peoples. A keeper of memories. A friend. Over the next few days, word spread about the princess's gift to Jake. Other Velshara began to adopt human friends into their names. Young Velshara, who had connected with human visitors, asked for permission to add syllables, honoring those friendships. It became a trend, then a movement. The old ways were changing, not being destroyed, but evolving, growing, becoming something new and beautiful. One day, Jake was surprised to receive a visitor. Corvel Shanthar, the former High Chancellor who had tried to sabotage the festival, stood at the embassy entrance. His skin was dim, showing shame. Ambassador Jakmor Shelvith, he said, using Jake's full Velshara name. May I speak with you? Jake was cautious but curious. Of course. Come in. They sat in a quiet room. Corvel Shanthar's 4 arms were folded in a gesture of humility. I have come to apologize, he said, and to ask for something that I don't deserve. What's that? I want you to learn my name, the old Velshara said. My real name. All of it. I want someone to truly know me, even though I tried to keep you and your people away. Especially because of that. I need to understand what I was denying my people. Jake was moved by the request. This was a proud, powerful person, admitting he was wrong, asking for the very thing he had once fought against. I would be honored to learn your name, Jake said. They spent the afternoon together. Corvel Shanthar told his story, and Jake listened. He learned that the old chancellor had lost someone he loved to an alien species centuries ago. That loss had made him afraid of outsiders. He had spent so long protecting his people from pain that he had also protected them from joy and connection. I see now that I was wrong, Corvel Shanthar said. Fear kept us safe, but it also kept us alone. You humans have shown us that being known is worth the risk of being hurt. When Jake finally spoke Corvel Shanthar's full name, the old Velshara cried silver tears. He whispered, "Thank you for seeing me, for knowing me, even after what I did." "Everyone deserves to be known," Jake said. "Everyone deserves to have their name spoken with respect. That's what this is all about." Months turned into years. The embassy grew. More humans came to live and work with the Velshara. More Velshara visited Earth and other human worlds. Children grew up knowing each other's names and stories. The galaxy became a little bit smaller, a little bit more connected. Jake stood on his favorite balcony one evening, looking out over the Velshara capital. The princess joined him, as she often did these days. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked. "Sometimes," Jake admitted. "But this feels like home now, too. I belong to two worlds." "That's what your name says," the princess smiled. "Bridge between worlds. You've become exactly what you were meant to be." They watched the suns set together, comfortable in silence. After a while, the princess spoke again. "Tell me about your grandmother, the librarian. I want to know more about where your love of names comes from." So Jake told her. He told her about a kind old woman who had worked in a small library on Earth, about how she had taught him that every book was a world and every name was a story, about how she had always remembered everyone's name, even people she had only met once. "She sounds wonderful," the princess said. "I would have liked to meet her." "She would have loved you," Jake said. "She always said that the greatest gift you can give someone is to remember their name, to really see them as a person, not just a face in a crowd." The princess was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Will you teach me more human names? Not just your friends here, but the names of people throughout human history. Your heroes and artists and thinkers. I want to know them too." "I'd love that," Jake said. "And will you teach me more Velshara names? From your history?" "Of course. We have thousands of years of stories to share." And so they continued. Two friends from different worlds, learning each other's names and stories, teaching others to do the same, building bridges, one name at a time. The galaxy had changed, not through weapons or threats, but through the simple act of remembering, through the choice to see others as they truly were, through the understanding that every being, no matter how different, wants the same thing: to be known, to be remembered, to matter to someone. And it had all started with a human captain who spent 3 months learning how to say one alien princess's name correctly, because he believed she was worth the effort. Because he understood that being willing to remember someone's name was the first step toward genuine friendship. The lights in the Garden of Souls continued to grow, connecting more lives, more stories, more names. And somewhere among those thousands of floating lights, two glowed especially bright, connected by a golden thread that would never break. The end.